UML Component Diagrams by Dallin Snell, Jonah Green, and Brian Robertson. My name is Brian Robertson, and I will be continuing the presentation on the next slide. What are UML component diagrams? Unified Modeling Language is a multi-purpose modeling language used mainly for software projects to provide a graphical representation of the intended layout of a piece of software. UML has many different ways of representing the design of a program. It has structure diagrams that focus mainly on the design of a program and how its discrete components interact with each other. And it also has behavioral diagrams that focus on the behavior of the program and how it will react to user input. Component diagrams specifically are a form of UML structure diagram, and they represent all the components of a system and how they interact with each other.
As for an example of when a UML diagram would be useful is this particular example here is somewhat contrived and basic, but I think it gets the point across. So you have an online shopping page. Your online shopping page, when you're laying it out, it's dependent on the customer. That's what the dotted line pointing to the customer means. Without a customer, your online page means nothing. So you have your customer, and the customer has to communicate with the order. That's what the solid line between the customer and the order is. And then the order has to communicate with the customer. You have to, the order needs to know what the customer wants. The customer has to somehow save what they want in order to purchase it. And you have the persistence, which would be the storage. So once the order is actually placed and saved, you can keep it somewhere. But the example itself doesn't really mean anything. It's more of the having each component there, showing the relation between them. You have dependencies shown, you have communications shown, and you have each of the nodes that can show all of these relations among the various elements and components that are a part of the system.
Okay, some upsides of UML component diagrams are discovering related data and attributes. Through the process of creating a component diagram, related data and attributes will come to the surface and will be shown through the relationships between each component. Quickly determining important entities. By having all the components of a system in a UML component diagram, it makes it easy to spot each entity that will be present in the system. By setting all the entities in front of somebody's face, it makes it a lot quicker to determine important ones because they'll have a lot of relationships between them. And then the last one is determining dependencies. UML component diagrams, when implemented correctly, will show that a component may require an interface from another component, or that a component provides an interface that another component may need. This helps the developer specify the dependencies in a program. Okay, some of the downsides of UML component diagrams are it does not show how the underlying classes of each component interact with each other. It also supplies little to no help when it comes to algorithmic detail. It also does not explain how a particular behavior of the program is implemented. It does not help the developer to understand the app's overall control flow. For example, it'll not show if the program is event-driven.
UML component diagrams give a high-level overview of a program's design, the components required, and how they will interact. UML component diagrams would be most effective when there are more than two classes, when components can and will be reused, and when the system has an SOA, or service-oriented architecture, meaning that the components will rely heavily on the communication from one component to another component in the system being designed.